Hi and welcome. This video is my attempt at restoring a water damaged MDF table. It just so happened there's an old table at my in-laws place, which from the looks of it seems to be either particle board or MDF. All I knew was that I needed some kind of varnish or stain for the wood, but after hunting around a few stores and some YouTube videos I found out what bits and pieces I might need. So here's what I got: mahogany colored sandable wood filler, a wood sealer, wood stain, and lacquered thinner. The table has numerous splotchy areas where there's water damage. The fibre or whatever is inside seems to have extruded into soft spongy bits. First I started off with a 120 grit sandpaper. I could work the edges of the table, but the top proved to be difficult considering the spongy bits preventing proper contact with the surface. Then I tried to remove the sanded bits with the paint stripping tool. It was slow going and hard to properly remove the spongy bits. I found a polishing head and attached it to a drill machine, and the work progressed nicely after that. Some work with the polishing head and some more sanding, and it was ready for the next phase. For some odd notion I assumed that the sanding sealer and the wood filler might be somewhat similar, so I applied a small amount of both, and I was wrong. The sanding sealer just made the recently hollowed spongy areas a bit mushy. So I set out to fill all the cavities with the wood filler instead. After an hour or so of drying, I sanded down the filler to get a smoother surface. It seemed relatively even, so I went ahead with the sanding sealer. After letting it dry for a bit, I sanded that down as well and applied the wood stain. Unfortunately, it was at this point I noticed that the slight dips that were present even after the wood filler was more noticeable, and there were also nicks and crevices running along the wood as well. This didn't feel quite good at the time, but in hindsight provided the best finish, and there were some interesting features in the wood at this point which made it look like a well-worn piece with some character. And I figured that I could add some sanding sealer to even it out, as the wood filler might be overkill and not to mention tedious at this stage. With that, I proceeded to apply the sanding sealer directly onto the tabletop and poured a bit of thinner and applied it all over again. The result was some skinning and wrinkling on top, which I proceeded to sand yet again. What ensued was more wood filler, sanding, more diluted sanding filler, more stain, possibly more sanding, and repeated and rinsed as necessary till I got into a point where it was bordering around insanity, if I hadn't already gotten there previously. At some point I decided to sand and stain the legs as well to give it a more cohesive look. After one last time with the sanding sealer, this time properly watered down with thinner, or so I thought, I gave it one last go. But unfortunately the skinning and wrinkling appeared again, this time even more pronounced. Tried sanding it, but that just took it right off, exposing the bottom layer. That was the last straw. I dripped on some stain with a brush and threw in the towel. The end result isn't anything spectacular, but it's an improvement over how it used to be, however slight it may be. I did manage to learn some things which might be useful if I ever come across something that needs some DIY love. Here are some supply decisions which I could use the next time. 1. Get a rotary or sanding disc which you can use with a drill machine. 2. Get different grit sandpaper, one for stripping and one for smoothing and one for finishing. 3. Get a lighter color stain or as close to the original as possible. 4. Similarly get lighter colored wood filler. And 5. The sanding sealer has to be very watery before applying. And if I had to do it again, I'd drill out all the extruding bits like I've done, use wood filler, reapply as needed and let dry thoroughly, then sand down to a nice even level with the power sander. Mix the sanding sealer with thinner to make it very liquidy and lower its viscosity. Apply sealer and carefully spread it over the entire surface to ensure a light and even film. Let it dry overnight, then sand with a very high grade finishing sandpaper, and then apply stain on top and let it set. Some of these I picked up as I was going along, and some I found out the hard way and then looking up more info. With things like this, you'll invariably not know everything you need to know, nor find the necessary step-by-step information for what you might be doing exactly. So learn as you go and chalk it up to experience, if you have something that's relatively inexpensive, I suppose. If you found this video interesting, silly, or in any shape or form useful, please hit that like button, share, and consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching.